The wind howled across the wide Montana land like a ghost crying in the dark. Dry dust flew through the air, touching everything like a reminder that life here was hard and unforgiving. It was the year 1883, and the land was still wild, with more silence than safety. A small figure rode alone under the burning sun. Her name was Calla Zane. Her horse was tired, her face bruised, her dress ripped and dirty. She didn't look back. She had nothing to go back to. Her eyes were red, not just from the sun, but from tears that had long dried up. Calla had run for 3 days straight, through thick woods, rocky paths, and freezing rivers. Her body ached, her hands were cut, but her heart was still beating, with one thought: find my children. She had two. Caleb, 9 years old. Ella, only 5 when she last held her. She hadn't seen them in 3 long years. Her husband, no, the man she escaped from, had taken them from her. He had beaten her, locked her in a small shed for days, and told her she was worth nothing. But something inside her never died. Now that small fire inside her had become a storm. She didn't have money. She didn't have friends. But she had a name written on a piece of old paper. Yates O'Connor, cattle rancher. Her mama had once worked on his land. He was kind, she had said, and kind people were rare in this world. The sky grew orange as the sun began to fall behind the hills. Calla's horse stumbled. She jumped off and walked the rest of the way. She followed the wooden fence until she saw a small house and barn. In the distance, she stood still, breathing hard, hands shaking. A man came out. He was tall, strong, with a gray hat and quiet eyes. His shirt was dusty and his hands were full of work. But when he saw her, he didn't pull out a gun like most men did when they saw a stranger. "You lost?" he asked. Calla opened her mouth, but her voice failed her. She could barely speak. Her throat was dry like gravel. She nodded, then held out the piece of paper. The man looked at it, then looked back at her. He said nothing for a moment. Then slowly, he opened the gate. "Come on in," he said. "You look like you need food and sleep more than answers." Inside the small ranch house, there was warmth. Calla sat by the fire. She didn't talk much, and neither did the man, but that silence was a gift. No shouting, no hitting, just peace. The man introduced himself. "Name's Yates O'Connor," he said. "You can stay for the night. I ain't got much, but you're safe here." Safe. That word hit her hard. She looked down at her hands, dirty and full of scars. Could she really be safe again? The next morning, she helped with chores. She milked the cow, even though her hands hurt. She carried buckets of water, cooked eggs, cleaned the porch. Yates didn't stop her. He watched quietly, with a look she didn't understand yet. Days turned into weeks. She never told him everything, just enough. That she was looking for her kids, that her past was not safe, that she wouldn't stop until she found them, and still he didn't send her away. He gave her a small room, a job, and something even more powerful: silence without fear. One evening, Calla sat on the porch, watching the sky turn purple. She held a folded photograph in her hand. Caleb and Ella smiled back at her, the only picture she had. She closed her eyes. A prayer formed on her lips. "Let me find them. Let them remember me." Yates stepped beside her. He didn't ask questions. Instead, he handed her a cup of warm tea. "You're stronger than you look," he said quietly. Calla looked at him. "I don't feel strong." Yates stared at the horizon. "That's how you know you are." In that moment, something shifted inside her. She wasn't just a woman running. She was a mother, a fighter, a survivor, and she wasn't alone anymore. She didn't know it yet, but this ranch, this man, this moment, it was the start of something bigger than she had ever imagined. A journey of hope, a fight for love, a promise that would change everything. Each morning began the same. Calla woke before the sun, tied her boots tight, and worked hard from dawn till dark. She fixed fences, fed the horses, and learned how to ride with better balance. Her hands grew stronger. Her arms grew steady. but her heart still held pain. At night, when the stars came out and the wind turned cold, she would sit by the fire alone, holding the photograph of her children. She touched their small faces gently, whispering their names like prayers. Caleb, Ella, Yates, noticed. He never said much, but he saw how her shoulders dropped at night. He saw the way she stared at nothing, as if looking far beyond the ranch, searching. One evening after dinner, she finally spoke. "They were taken from me," she said, voice low. "I was locked in a shed for almost a year. When I got out, they were gone." Yates sat still. He didn't ask how. He didn't ask why. He only said, "You think they're still out there?" Calla nodded slowly. "I know it. A woman in town once told me she saw a little girl with hair like Ella's, working on a farm near the Dry Hollow area. It was 3 counties south." Yates leaned forward. "That's rough land. Not many good men down there. Any idea whose farm it was?" Calla took a deep breath. Her hands trembled. She said the name Strickland. Yates froze. His eyes darkened. "Amos Strickland," he said almost in a whisper. "That man's no rancher. He's a devil who wears boots, steals people, buys children, runs his farm like a prison." Calla's heart pounded. Her hands balled into fists. "Then that's where I go next." Yates shook his head. "You can't just ride in there. He's got armed men. He's got the sheriff in his pocket. You show your face and you won't get 5 steps before someone puts you in the ground." Calla stood up. "I don't care. Those are my babies. I didn't escape hell just to sit still now. I'll fight, Yates. I'll fight with everything in me." Yates stood too. His voice was quiet, but strong. "Then you're not going alone." Calla looked at him, confused. He nodded. "You heard me. I'm going with you." She wanted to say no. She wanted to protect him. But something in his eyes told her he wasn't offering help. He was making a choice. He believed in her. The next morning, they prepared to leave. Yates gave her a small pistol and taught her how to use it. "Don't aim unless you mean it," he said, "and when you mean it, don't miss." Calla nodded, focused. This was not the woman who rode into his ranch weeks ago, half-broken and silent. This was someone else now, someone ready to take her life back. They rode for 2 days, through hills, rivers, and dry land. The closer they got to Dry Hollow, the heavier the air became. On the 3rd day, as the sun fell low, they stopped at a small town just outside Strickland's land. Yates went into the saloon to ask around quietly. He returned with his jaw clenched. "He's there," he said. "Strickland's got over 20 kids working his land. They say he beats them, barely feeds them." Calla's eyes burned. "Did anyone say anything about a limping boy and a golden-haired girl?" Yates hesitated, then gave a short nod. "They've seen them. It's them, Calla. They're there." She grabbed the saddle, ready to ride straight through the night. But Yates stopped her. "Wait. We go at night, but we go careful. Quiet. We sneak in through the barn. I know the land around." "There." Calla took a deep breath. Her heart pounded like thunder. She had dreamed of this moment for 3 years. She didn't know what to expect. Would her children remember her? Would they forgive her for being gone? Yates placed a hand on her shoulder. "We get them out, Calla. No matter what. You have my word." For the first time in years, Calla felt something stronger than fear, hope. They rode through the last stretch as night fell. In the distance, the dark shape of Strickland's farm rose like a shadow from the earth. Dogs barked. Lights glowed in the windows. But beyond it all, somewhere, in that darkness her children were waiting, and this time she was coming for them. Night had fallen. The air around Strickland's farm was cold and full of danger. Calla and Yates stayed low behind a line of trees. In the distance, the farmhouse lights flickered. The barn stood silent and dark, sitting close to the main house like a quiet prisoner. Calla's heart beat fast. Her fingers shook, but she gripped the small pistol tight in her hand. She had waited 3 long years for this moment, and now it was finally here. Yates touched her arm gently. "We go now," he whispered. Quick and quiet. They crossed, the field like shadows, stepping carefully to avoid making noise. They reached the barn and pushed open the heavy wooden door. The smell of hay, sweat, and dust filled the air. Inside, under dim moonlight, Calla saw shapes, small bodies sleeping on piles of hay. Children. She moved slowly, carefully, looking at each face. Her eyes scanned each one with desperate hope. And then she saw him. "Caleb," she whispered, falling to her knees. The boy's eyes opened, confused and tired. He looked older, thinner. He had a small scar above his eyebrow. He sat up quickly, breathing hard. "Who?" he began. "It's me," Calla said, tears already falling. "Mama, it's your mama." Caleb stared at her. He touched her face, like he was trying to make sure she was real. Then suddenly he wrapped his arms around her. "I thought you were dead," he whispered. "I thought I'd never see you again," she cried. Footsteps echoed behind the hay. A small girl peeked around the corner. Her hair was golden and messy. Her dress was too big and her face was pale. "Ella?" Calla stood up, her voice breaking. The little girl froze. "Who are you?" Calla's heart shattered. She knelt down slowly. "I'm your mama, baby. I used to sing you to sleep every night." Ella didn't move. So Calla began to sing, softly, the same lullaby she used to hum when rocking her in her arms. Ella's eyes grew wide. She took one small step forward, then another, and then she ran into Calla's arms, sobbing. "I remember," she cried. "I remember your song." Calla held them both close, her heart full of joy and pain all at once. But joy didn't last long. A loud shout came from outside, then another. Strickland's men had seen the horses. "They're in the barn," someone yelled. "Get the guns." Yates pulled his rifle and moved to the door. "We don't have much time." Calla looked at her children. "Can you run?" Caleb nodded. Ella held her hand tightly. Gunshots rang out. A bullet hit the side of the barn wall. Hay flew into the air. Yates fired back. One man dropped. Another ran behind the chicken coop. "We go out the back," Yates shouted. "Now!" They ran, ducking low. Calla picked up Ella and held Caleb's hand as they sprinted across the dark field. The sky was lit only by the moon and the flashing of gunfire. Suddenly, Yates fell. He groaned in pain, holding his shoulder. Blood soaked his shirt. Calla stopped. "Yates, keep going," he shouted. "Get them out." But she couldn't leave him. Not after everything. She handed Ella to Caleb. "Take your sister to the trees. Hide. Mama's right behind you." The children ran. Calla turned back and dragged Yates to his feet. He winced but didn't fight her. She helped him move as fast as they could toward the edge of the property. More bullets flew past. One hit her skirt. Another grazed Yates's leg. But they didn't stop. Finally, they reached the trees. The children were hiding behind a rock. Calla fell to the ground, out of breath, shaking. Yates collapsed beside her. "You did it," he said softly. Calla looked at her kids, then at him. "We did it." In the distance, shouts still echoed, but they didn't chase. Maybe Strickland didn't want lawmen digging into stolen children. Maybe he knew the fight wasn't worth what was coming. Calla wrapped her arms around Caleb and Ella, holding them close. They were safe. Hurt, scared, but alive. She turned to Yates, who leaned against a tree, bleeding but alive. "You came with me," she said quietly. He looked at her, eyes soft. "You were never going to do this alone." That night, under the cold stars, Calla finally felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not anger, but peace. She had fought for her children. She had faced the storm. And she had won. The sun was rising, spreading golden light across the trees. Dew sparkled on the grass. After a long, painful night, the world looked quiet and peaceful again. Calla sat near the fire she had built, her children sleeping beside her under a blanket. Caleb's arm rested around little Ella, and their breathing was soft and calm. For the first time in years, they were safe in her arms. Yates was nearby, leaning against a rock. His shoulder was bandaged, and his shirt was torn and stained with blood. But he was awake. His eyes were tired but kind. Calla walked over to him and knelt beside him. She placed a warm cup of water in his hand. "You saved us," she said gently. Yates looked at her, shaking his head. "You saved them. I just helped." "No," Calla said, her voice cracking. "You believed in me, when I didn't believe in myself." Yates didn't reply, but the way he looked at her said more than words ever could. They rested through the morning in silence. The children slept deeply, too tired to move. Calla sat between them, watching every breath, every little
switch.
She still couldn't believe they were here, real, alive, next to her. She thought back to all the nights she had cried alone, staring at that photograph, all the prayers she had whispered, all the times she had wanted to give up. And now, here they were. Caleb opened his eyes and looked at her. "Mama, are we going home?" She nodded, tears forming again. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." "But where is home?" he asked quietly. Calla paused. That question sat heavy in her heart. Where was home now? Yates heard it too. He stood slowly, walked toward them, and spoke gently. "You can come back with me," he said. "To the ranch. It's quiet, it's honest, and it's yours if you want it." Calla looked up at him. She saw more than a man. She saw a safe place, a future, a piece of peace she never thought she'd find. She reached out and held his hand. "We'd like that," she said. A week later, they returned to the O'Connor ranch. The journey was slow but full of light. The sky was clear, the horses steady. Caleb helped guide Ella, who smiled more each day. Calla held their hands often, like she was afraid they would disappear. The ranch looked the same, but something felt new. Yates had cleaned the small house, made 2 new beds from old wood, and even fixed up a swing behind the barn. Calla walked through the front door, holding her children close. "This is home now," she whispered. And it was. Life didn't turn perfect. Some nights Ella still woke up crying from bad dreams. Caleb had scars that didn't show on his skin. Calla herself still woke with panic in her chest, fearing the past would return. But every day was better than the last. Calla worked the land, with Yates. She rode her horse proudly, not as a woman hiding from her past, but as a mother who had fought and won. She taught Caleb how to mend fences. She taught Ella how to make biscuits from scratch. Yates built a small schoolhouse near the barn. "So they can learn," he said simply. One evening, Calla stood on the porch watching the sun go down. Yates joined her, quiet as always. "Thank you," she said. He smiled. "For what?" "For helping me find myself again." Yates turned to her. "You didn't find yourself," he said. "You built yourself back, piece by piece. That takes more courage than anything." Calla's eyes filled with tears. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I never thought I could be whole again," she said. "You were never broken," he whispered. "Just lost. Now you're found." They stood there as the sky turned deep blue, stars blinking into the night. Behind them, Caleb and Ella laughed as they ran around the yard. Their laughter was loud and full of joy. Calla closed her eyes and breathed in the cool air. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She had fought for her children. She had found love in a place she never expected. And she had created a home, not just for her children, but for herself too. Moral of the story. Even when life breaks you down, even when hope feels lost, you can still rise. Love, courage, and faith can bring light back into your life. You are stronger than your scars, and you are never too lost to be found.